Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. So in this week's video, I'm going to encourage you guys to go and try something different when you're out doing street photography / urban photography. So I'm sure I'm no different from you guys. When I first started doing photography, I tried to gather as much information as possible. And at the time, I wasn't sure which direction my photography was going to go in. So I was watching a lot of different YouTube channels for landscape photography, for urban and street photography. And what I got from these guys was, a very fixed and structured way of taking photographs. And that was fine for a time, but I felt that it was really holding me back in terms of, improving my photography. So yeah, I changed the way that I did things. And I said, for today's video, I'm hoping to give you guys some inspiration as well, particularly if you find that you're in a bit of a photography rut. So the first thing I want to deal with is focal length. Now, this is very much with urban and street photography. In fact, the three things I'm going to talk to you today really are focused on urban and street. So focal length with urban and street photography, so many videos talking about using 35mm as a focal length. Now, I know that does give you something that's closer to what the human eye sees. But why restrict yourself on focal length? So I don't even have a 35mm lens. I have a zoom lens, which I can use at various focal lengths. So I've done a previous video on that. I have a 50mm prime lens, which I generally take out with me about, 70% of the time for urban photography. But I don't understand the reason why so many people just stick to 35mm. Now, again, you may have a camera that's got that fixed focal length. Obviously, there's nothing you can change there, and you've decided to buy that camera. But if you do have a camera and the possibility to use a zoom lens, I really would encourage you to experiment with different focal lengths. Two advantages to this. When I'm out on the street, sometimes I want to be standing opposite the road and capture something as it goes past. With a zoom lens on my camera, it means I can really capture that shot, zoom in on the detail, and also I'm less likely to be seen because I'm standing the other side of a road, particularly if that road has some traffic going along it. And secondly, it's because, as you know, as you go longer on the lens, you get more compression as well, so it will give you a different type of shot. So the other thing that I saw a lot was black and white photography for street and urban. Now, I don't know, maybe you guys are only doing black and white. Maybe you guys are mixing it up with black and white and color. Maybe some of you are only doing color. Again, I think really it's a case of experimenting with different things. Now, personally, I prefer to do color photography. Mainly because when I'm doing urban, I do like to look for color combinations and color contrasts. But occasionally I will shoot black and white. Now, the reason why I shoot black and white is if I think the shot is going to work better if I remove the color, because sometimes the color can be a real distraction to the shot. Now, you may have seen a recent video where I deliberately went out to take blurred images, and 90% of those images I did shoot in black and white because I felt color with the blur really distracted from the overall photo. There were only 2 photos, I think, from memory, where I actually shot them in color because I felt the amount of color, and it wasn't a huge amount of color, actually added to the composition and therefore added to the overall feel of the shot. So just experiment. Don't be set in your ways with just black and white or just color. just really think about the shot and whether it's going to work better as a monochrome or in color. And the final thing on my list is light. Now, again, everything I was looking at the beginning of my photography journey is harsh light conditions, using a strip of light to really create these kind of silhouette shots, somebody walking across in front of the light, these really dramatic, high contrast black and white images. And again, when I went out there at the beginning, that's all I was taking. However, what I found was that got pretty boring pretty quickly. So I soon decided to move away from that. This also links back into my earlier part when I talked about, color versus monochrome. And I would suggest that if you are just going out in harsher lighting conditions to get these high contrast images, why not experiment with ambient light? Quite often, I'll go out and do urban photography when it's overcast, flat conditions, and I'm still really pleased with the results that I get. The other thing I did as well is work on my editing. And if you've seen any of my urban photography before, you'll know that very often I create a very pastel look to my photographs, and that works really well with the color photos. And I find that it works well in ambient conditions and also when we have stronger light as well. So again, just experiment with different things would be my advice. You don't know until you try it, and you might be pleased with the results. And if nothing else, it just expands your range of creativity, which is never a bad thing. So hopefully you found these suggestions useful, and it will encourage you to get out more with your camera and just to try different things. You never know what you're going to like until you give it a go. As always, thank you for watching and see you next time.